Last group, it's the streptococci and enterococci. The streptococci and the enterococci belong to the streptococcus family. They are very important pathogens. So they're gram-positive cocci, and if you look at them microscopically, they're going to be chains or pairs. They're all catalase negative, it's definitive. But you never want to do a catalase test from blood agar, because blood has catalase activity, and if you take from blood agar and get a little bit of blood, it's going to be positive, it's going to be a false positive. And when you do a catalase test, you always want to use a non-conductive tool. So something plastic or wood, not metal, because the metal will cause a false positive. Okay? They're grouped by Rebecca Lansfield. She was an immunologist, and what she figured out is you could group the streptococci by the sugars that they store in their cell walls. So right here you say based on CHO, carbohydrates in the cell walls, right? And there's several major pathogens. Group A is Streptococcus pyogenes. It causes strep throat, but also scarlet fever and necrotizing fasciitis and erysipelas. There's a bunch of them. Group B is Streptococcus agalacti. And for about 30% of all women, it is normally found in the vagina. So during a good prenate, when you're going to have childbearing, what you want to do is you want to check for the organism to make sure it's not there, because you don't want the child, when they're coming out of the birth canal, to be exposed to that organism, because it can cause blood infections, meningeal and brain infections, and it can cause pneumonia also. Okay? Then we go to Group D, and Group D, especially the enterococci, those are all fecal strep, and those have been known to cause infections everywhere in the body. And those, of all the strep, that's the only one that has developed resistance over the years. All the other guys, you can knock them out with amoxicillin for the most part. Okay? But the enterococci are different, and that's the number one cause of ear infections in little kids.
D? Group D?
No, D, enterococci. D, as in, darn it. Okay? The last group, or last organism that's really important is the one at the very bottom, Streptococcus pneumoniae. Streptococcus pneumoniae is not groupable because it has a capsule. So all of the carbohydrates in the cell wall are masked by the capsule sugars. So it's not groupable. But it is a major pathogen, right? And today, Myra wanted me to remind you all that, especially with Streptococcus pneumoniae that's in broth, you always want to pick the tubes up from the actual glass and not the lids, because these things are very loose, and if you pick them up, we've already had that problem, but you want to pick them up from the bottom. Note the differences in the broth characteristics also, okay? So what we do with these things is we have 5 different things we can use diagnostically. The first one is blood agar, and you know about that already, okay? So today, I would like for you all to take a plate or 2 plates of blood agar. On one side, I want you to do a real short streak, a breeze streak, you know what I'm talking about, and I want you to do Streptococcus pneumonia on one side and Streptococcus pyogenes on the other side. And then I want you to put an A and a P disc on it, okay? So it kind of looks like that, like I drew on the board, okay? Good? So the antibiotic in the A is called bacitracin. It's a very common antibiotic. You can buy it anywhere, and it's really effective topically. What we know is, if you look at this chart that I've given you and go over to the A disc, that's what's got bacitracin in it. If you follow it, you'll see that only Streptococcus pyogenes is sensitive to it. All the other guys are resistant. So that makes it so that it's diagnostic for group A strep or Streptococcus pyogenes. The P disc has got optogen on it. So if you go to the P disc and you go down the column all the way at the bottom, you see the only one that is sensitive to that sensitive to optogen is Streptococcus pneumoniae. That's the one that's not grouped. Okay? So does everybody understand? You're going to take a plate, divide it into half, and then you're going to put an A and a P disc on them. So let's see, who haven't I picked on yet? Oh, Lisette. Will you volunteer to do one plate, 4 quadrant streak isolation for Streptococcus pyogenes, and then put an A in between the first and second quadrant and a P in between the second and third quadrant? Okay? And Annalisa, will you take another plate and do a 4 quadrant streak for isolation? Why are you giving me that face?
I already did it.
Oh, you already did it? Okay. Rachel, have you done one?
Yes.
Okay, fine. Nikki, have you done one?
I'm happy to do it.
Okay, good. All right, good. Will you do a 4 quadrant streak for isolation for strep pneumoniae? Strep pneumoniae is a very dangerous organism, but it's fragile. So take about 2 loopholes and put it, and then streak it. Okay? 4 quadrant streak for isolation in the first quadrant, an A disc on the second quadrant, a P disc. Okay? Good. And then we're going to come back. On the P disc and on the A disc, the antibiotic is there. And the rules of diffusion say that where the molecules are at highest concentration, they're going to diffuse out to areas of lower concentration. So these antibiotics are going to diffuse out of the disc into the media every single direction. So they're going to form this zone around it. And where they come in contact with bacteria that are sensitive, it's going to kill them. And so then you can see up there, there's an area right there. There's an A disc. Over on the right side, you can see there's an A disc, and there's a clearing around where you see growth. That's called a zone of inhibition. That means that the organism was killed by the antibiotic. That means that that particular organism is sensitive to bacitracin. Okay? At the very bottom, you can see that there's a disc. It's got an A on it, but the organism is growing right on top of it. Right? In that case, even though the antibiotic diffused out, it did not kill the organism. So the organism grew right up to the disc, and we say that that organism is resistant to the antibiotic. And so you might be thinking, well, what are these things called discs? Well, I thought I had to, but it looks like somebody took them. So, Harlow, will you go grab those 2 blue buckets for me and bring them over here? So this has got the A disc in it. This is bacitracin. This has got the P disc, which is optogen. And what they essentially are these little cartridges that have the disc in them, right? And we're going to use tweezers to pull them out, and then we're going to put them on the plates. So when somebody gets ready to do that, I'll show you how to do the first one, and then y'all can do the rest. Fair enough? Okay? Everybody good? And so then we'll let them grow, and then we'll let the antibiotics diffuse in the media. We'll come back on Thursday, and we will review and make sure we get all the results prior to beginning our numbers. Okay? Anybody have any questions about blood agar and the A and the P disc? So, the next 2 tests will help to differentiate the organism, especially group D and group H and K, based on these 2 tests. These 2 tests, this is bile esculin, and this is 6.5 salt tolerance. They're run in tandem. They're run together all the time. Okay? So, let's talk about esculin. It's presented as a slant. How are you going to inoculate it, Desiree?
You streak it and then you stab it.
Streak the slant, stab the butt. So you're going to be using 3 each cohort's going to be using 3 organisms, right? You're going to be using, thank you. You're going to be using Enterococcus faecalis, that's group D Enterococcus, Streptococcus bovis, and Streptococcus pyogenes. So each group will do 1 tube for each of those. And then you come back in 24 hours and the slant is dark, it's positive. If there's no color change, it's negative. The other one's even easier. So here we have a broth that has a little bit of sugar and a little bit of protein in it. But the important thing that's in it is 6.5 sodium chloride, salt. And so the organism, the enterococcus, group D enterococcus, are slightly halophilic. They're the only group of strep that will grow in this particular medium. So you'll inoculate this with a loop for the organisms, the three you used before. And you're gonna have a setup. This is a setup. You're gonna have one for strep pyogenes, one for enterococcus, and one for the other strep. And you're gonna come back in 24 hours. If it's turbid, it's positive. If it's still clear, it's negative. Okay? But you have to evaluate the two tests together. So listen to me. This is written on the board for you, but listen to me. If you come back on Thursday and you have a negative bile escalin and a negative 6.5, you're now looking, and the organism is catalase negative. It has to be catalase negative. If you put a catalase positive in here, they're all gonna grow. Okay? Because they're all halophiles. But if you come back, you have a gram-positive coccus, catalase negative, and it's negative bile escalin, negative 6.5, the organism belongs to group A, group B, or group C. Okay? Good? If it's a gram-positive coccus that's catalase negative, and it's bile escalin positive dark, but 6.5 negative clear, it's going to be group H, group K, or group D non-enterococcus. Okay? And you come back on Thursday and you have positive bile escalin dark and positive 6.5 turbid or cloudy. You have group D enterococcus, and there are two different species in that group. It's Enterococcus faecalis and Enterococcus faecium. Okay? Good?
You said if it was positive for both, then it's group A, group K, and other?
No, negative for both.
Oh, wait,
If it's negative for both,
oh.
it's group A, B, or C.
Well, right, but you said it's positive. I said
If it's positive
yeah.
for both of them, it's group D Enterococcus only.
Oh, okay.
So here are all the organisms and all the groups. So if you look at the Enterococcus, right, those are the ones that are Enterococcus. The other two that are not are Salveris and Bovis. They're not Enterococcus. Okay. These 5 tests: blood agar, A dis, P dis, bile escalin 6.5. If you do that, you can identify any strep species that we have. Okay. Good. It's 12:41. You should be done in about 10 minutes. And then we can just take it on home for the day. Okay? Good. This is the last time you'll be doing a pre-lab for me. The lab report, this is the last one. It's number 12. And once you turn them in and I score them, I will post your cohort grade. And then you'll have that also. Okay? And when is this lab report due? Next Tuesday. And what do you have due on Thursday? Pre-lab wise?
11?
Huh?
11.
No, pre-lab. Nothing. We're done.
Yeah, just the lab report 11. Yeah.
Don't be getting all technical.
So that's the 7th, yeah.
You just like to get all technical.